Call to order the meeting, the Oklahoma Department of Wildlife Conservation Commission meeting, the 7th day of December 2020. I'd like to welcome everybody here. We'll wait a few minutes for Rhonda to get back.
Maybe we can do the invocation and pledge, Ken? What do you think?
Yeah.
And then
Ken Cunningham, invocation, pledge of allegiance. Please stand at this time.
Amen.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
How are you? You want to go ahead and do the introduction, guest, and then we'll go.
Sure. So we'll do roll call right after I introduce the guests. We have with us, who will be on the agenda later, talking about the actuarials, David Kent and Dan Bledsoe from talk about the audit. Stephen Harris with tourism is here over there. Good to see you there. And with the perfect roll call, as usual, Laura McIver from Quail Forever and James Deach from Quail Forever. Welcome back. Susie Brewster from Shikar Safari also on the agenda, and the foundation director Rick Grunman is with us as well. Thank you all for being here.
Thank you, JD. Rhonda, if you'll please call the roll.
Commissioner Brewster. Here. Commissioner Barwick, absent. Commissioner Hughes.
Here.
Commissioner Gaddis. Here. Commissioner Zelps. Here. Commissioner Dillingham. Here. Commissioner Holder. Here. Commissioner Mabry.
Here. Consideration and vote to approve amend to take other action on minutes of the October 5th meeting. Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion second. Discussion. Being none, roll call.
Commissioner Brewster. Yes. Commissioner Hughes.
Yes.
Commissioner Gaddis. Yes. Commissioner Zelps. Yes. Commissioner Dillingham. Yes. Commissioner Holder. Yes. Commissioner Mabry.
Yes. JD, I think you're on for director's report.
Yes, sir. Thank you. I will, in your package, you have a couple of reports there, director's report as usual, and then our report from Brittany Preston on things that are going on at the federal level. I will let you read through Brittany's federal report at your leisure, as honestly, there's nothing really noteworthy going on at the federal level when it comes to fish and wildlife right now, especially, but in all things, if you've been watching the news lately. Lots of craziness. At the state level, I'll just go ahead and report for Corey on the legislative front, just because there's not a lot going on at the state legislative level. Some interim studies here and there, nothing really impacting wildlife. Bill request deadlines are December 11th, and so after that date, we'll get a feel for whether or not there have been any bills requested that might impact fish and wildlife issues. We do intend to file a couple of request bills this year, and we'll take that up with the commission's legislative committee as well. I think next month or within the next month, we'll try to schedule that as soon as Commissioner Barwick is back in the saddle from his, I think he had eye surgery, if I remember correctly. So, but a couple of bills for us, the trappers bill that we filed last legislative session, which is just kind of remove some outdated language from statute on trap types and that sort of stuff, and allow us to handle it through our regulatory process so that we can kind of keep that regulation contemporary with whatever the latest trapping hardware might be. And then again, as we got it past the House last session, but a bill that would move the authority for all of our licenses and our license fees from the legislature to the commission. So we're hopeful that we can take another shot at that and maybe get it across the finish line. Last session was a challenging one due to COVID. So a lot of things didn't get passed unless they were really high priority. So we'll see how things go this session. But we've got an anxious House author and Representative McDougal, who's ready to pick that one back up again and run with it and get it through the House as he did last year. And we'll see how we fare on the Senate side this year, which is where we got kind of hung up last year. So that's really all on the legislative front. You'll see a picture there in your report. And thank you, Commissioner Dillingham, for joining us out in your district, the grand opening of the new Sand Hills Wildlife Management Area. We had a ribbon cutting on that November 13th, and we had a couple legislators present there, including Senator Murdoch and Peterson and Representative Newton. So we're glad to have them with us as we get to go tour the site. And I've already heard a few reports of folks having some successful hunting trips out there, and some quail chasers that weren't so successful. But so that's the way it's going to go, I think, with this quail season this year. On the human dimensions side, you can see several things going on there. We're going out right now with a controlled hunts / foundation hunts survey that might be of interest to folks. We'll get some data back, but that's going to help us determine next spring when we open up our standard controlled hunts drawing process. We're going to add to the mix this time around several raffle hunts that we haven't done before. And I know a lot of the employees have been really busy lining up not just hunts, but fishing trips as well. So there's a fishing trip with the guide on Keystone that has helped guide the couple of world record paddlefish that were caught this past summer. He's donating a fishing trip that will be raffled off. I think there's a fishing trip with Jimmy Houston maybe lined up for next spring. Yes, Barry. And then some great hunts, a couple of them donated by commissioners. Thank you, Commissioners Zelps, Dillingham, and I think maybe Gaddis may have one in there or in the works. But anyway, we'll be adding those to the mix, and those will be kind of fundraiser raffle hunts for the department, the foundation. So we look forward to kicking that off. But the survey will help us kind of determine how to price those things and what people are most interested in when it comes to raffle hunts and fishing trips, so that we'll kind of focus on those to line those up in the coming years. So look forward to that. The 2019 game harvest survey final report is done. And so just some of the findings from that you'll see listed in the report. Overall, 64% of the survey participants said they hunted in 2019. Participation rates varied by license type. 32% of those active hunters relied on public land for their hunting. So feral swine continue for the second year in a row to be tied for third most pursued species by licensed hunters, even though you don't have to have a license to hunt those. But deer, turkey continue to be number one and number two. Feral swine hunting was tied for three with dove. So we asked them some questions about our wildlife management areas related to regulations and preferred management priorities. Hunters said if we asked them how they would spend their money, how we should spend our money, they said on average they'd spend more on improving the land for fish and wildlife and a little less on improving the infrastructure. You can see the types of infrastructure projects they're most interested in, and that is road improvements, number one. That's a typical complaint that we get from our WMAs. Camping areas were popular among tribal license holders. Signage and shooting ranges, most popular among annual license holders, and another top pick for the senior license holders was restrooms. So interesting stuff there. Going on, you'll see what's going on in fisheries division, continuing to do stockings. Of course, a lot of trout this time of year. And I'll just kind of let you sift through there and see what else you're interested in. A number of habitat projects going on in various lakes across the state, whether it's cutting and dropping cedar trees in for fish structure or spider blocks, artificial structure. You see a lot of activity there. In fact, really the point of the 8 pages is to show you that despite COVID, this is a very busy place right now, especially with people taking to the outdoors in droves like they never have before. So couple of things going on in I&E division that may be of interest there. Michael Bergen, for example, has released several R3 related marketing emails with using targeted marketing communications that are focused on mentorship, encouraging antlerless harvest, CWD, reminding folks that outdoors are always open, that sort of thing. That's generated more than $121,000 in revenue and license sales through those targeted marketing campaigns. There was one other in here that I know. Also, Michael Bergen and Casey Harriet, who's our hunting R3 coordinator, based out of the Jinx Aquarium office, submitted a proposal and won a $50,000 grant to help us do more targeted marketing, essentially to lapsed hunters and some potential and existing customers in an effort to increase license sales as well as increase the antlerless license sales stuff. So good stuff going on there. Lots of virtual hunting and fishing courses have been put on over the course of the past couple of months. Folks teaching hunting and fishing techniques online to those that we normally might have in-person workshops, but we actually draw bigger audiences online, so it's kind of been a blessing in disguise, getting folks interested. And just to add to that, a lot of increased push to get folks to go through our online hunter certification, hunter education process, and we've seen a big uptick in that, which is good for us on the match front, our federal grant match side of things. We'll talk later about some awards that we won through the Southeast Association of Fish and Wildlife Agencies. Again, on the wildlife side, you'll see grand opening of Sand Hills. I don't know, Bill, if anybody has checked the latest deer check, Russ. You got numbers on that? You're the man. What's the update on deer checked in since?
As of this morning, we're sitting at 111,561. So for relevance, last year's total harvest was 106,337. Our all-time record in 2006 was 119,000 deer. Got a chance to get there.
Yeah, I think we may break that with.
People still check in today, we're coming home yesterday, they got some time.
24 hours. Mm-hmm.
Looking good.
Yeah.
Not with me, but I can get you one.
On buck doe, is that what you're, yeah.
Actually, I did look at that, sorry, 37%. Actually, statewide, that's why we're finding ourselves, we've been doing a big push. 35, 36, but it's right in there, but we'd like to get it up to 45.
Yeah, so we're about where we have been, despite the efforts to push does. I've talked to a number of people, though, that have been out deer hunting, and they tend to focus on their big trophy bucks during the rifle season, and then they're thinking about holiday antlerless to go get those does. So hopefully we'll see an increase in doe harvest on the holiday season.
Bill, what's that date on the holiday antlerless season?
Start this year on the 18th of December.
Through
And
the-
run through the 31st.
December 18th through the 31st.
Zones that are open, zone 1 and zone 10 are closed, but the rest of the state.
Yes, so hunters in the know, take a doe. All right, bear season closed with 72 bears being harvested this year, 43 male, 29 female. It included 4 bears from muzzleloader season, the rest, of course, archery. It also included 2 bears from Haskell County and 1 from Bryan County, the couple of counties that were just newly opened to bear hunting. So that's some interesting stuff. You just got the latest update from Bill on deer, which is a little outdated based on what's listed there in my report, but we had mixed results on ducks and quail so far this year with, depending on where you are. We always like to talk about it being spotty, right? I'm sure that's what we're going to hear from Tell later. Partly cloudy with a chance of rain every year, it seems like, on quail. But so some people having some wildly successful hunts and others getting skunked. So that's the way hunting goes. Elk, down the Wichita's, hunts went well. 68 hunters harvested 43 elk, 15 bulls, 28 cows. We had limited numbers, 600 hunters this year from McAllister Archery, and they harvested 42 bucks and 70 does, which seems like a very low ratio, but you'll recall it's primitive archery only at that hunt. So law enforcement's been busy. In fact, Commissioner Mabry noticed a overpass operation on I-40 yesterday. In fact, I think you may have driven right under him. He had no blood on the tailgate, so he didn't get stopped. But I participated with District 5 guys weekend ago down south of Marietta, so down in Commissioner Brewster's country. And so lots of stuff going on, and everybody is finally getting some well-deserved rest after 16 days of hell in the law enforcement division. So you see an update there of working on those cross-deputization agreements with the tribes. I have one done already with Cherokees, and we're working on others. We should recognize Game Warden Stephen Paul in District 8, who rescued an individual on Sooner Lake who was drowning, essentially. And so Stephen's quick action got out there in the boat and got the guy saved, who was using a half-full can of gas to keep him afloat in Sooner Lake. So thank you to him for saving somebody's life. And then we'll talk about another deserving game warden, Jared Kramer, a little later in the agenda as well. So with that, I'd be happy to yield to any questions, if there are any. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, JD, for that report. Next item on the agenda is a presentation of Shikar Safari International Club Officer of the Year. Presentation by Nathan Erdman and Sue Brewster.
Thank you, Commissioners. Is this on? Yeah. Yeah, Dinkins can attest to the road bridge.
Oh, yeah, you got pulled over
operation
yesterday.
also. Appreciate everybody having me in here today. This is my favorite award, mostly because the Game Warden of the Year is voted on by his peers. So they're sent in by their supervisor. They're voted on by a board of previous Game Warden of the Year winners, and selected from a wonderful group, one from each district. So 8 guys get nominated. Jared, I can tell you from past experience, I've been up here for 4 years. I think he's been nominated for probably 3 or 4 of those years from his district. So he's not just a flash in the pan one time and I'm going to call it good and rest on my laurels. He's been doing great for years now. I've been proud of him. He's a great warden, and I'll let Susie go ahead and do a little more introduction on him.
Jared, would you come with us, please?
hard with this mask thing going sometimes. Especially glad to be here representing Shikar Safari Club International. We are an international group limited to 200 members worldwide. And one of our favorite things to do is in every state and Canada as well, present a Wildlife Officer of the Year award. And being chosen by your peers is one of the most important things I think can happen. It means everybody looks up to you, as is true with Jared. I was most impressed by his initiative to teach a high school group called Outdoor Adventure Class, where they went through all aspects of hunter education and ended up being certified with their hunter education program, and outside, inside, and not everybody does that. But as all of you know, if you look around the room, a lot of people have gray hair or no hair, and we need young hunters. We need the youth turned on. Shikar Safari Club also does another very important thing for our game wardens. Everyone who has been chosen, if you are killed in the line of duty, Shikar Safari Club immediately awards a $20,000 policy to the family immediately upon their death. We hope that never happens. I understand Warden Kramer came very close in an incident that he was involved in, and his brother also is a game warden here in Oklahoma, and Jared wandered across the line into Missouri, but then saw the potential and wonderful place back home in Oklahoma. So I'm happy to award Jared Kramer with our Shikar Safari Club Warden of the Year award. Do you have his pen? Wear this with pride, man.
Don, just tell him where you want him.
All of our eyes are, none of us can see.
I know.
I hold it over here for you, if I need to.
There's also a plaque, a small plaque that comes with a large plaque that I believe hangs out in the entry hall that recognizes.
And that's pretty.
JD's coming.
Yeah, come on.
Well, I don't have a whole lot to say, other than thank you for the recognition. As an officer in the field, it always does feel good to get recognized, especially by administration and your peers. Honestly, I don't feel like I really did anything that any of our other game wardens wouldn't have done. And I know there's probably a lot of them that did a whole lot more than me. They just didn't get recognized. All I got to say about that.
Thank you.
I'm through.
Congratulations, Jared. That's an award that's very well deserved. Appreciate your service and time here at the Wildlife Department. Also like to thank Bill and Susie each year coming to the commission meeting and making that presentation. So thank you, Bill. Thank you, Susie. Next on the agenda is a presentation recognition of the 2020 Special Recognition Award from the Southeast Association of Fish and Wildlife Agency. Special award presented to Department of Wildlife Conservation and the Department of Tourism and Recreation. JD?
Yes, sir. So this year, the SEFWA, Southeast Association of Fish and Wildlife Agencies, held their annual conference online. It's been a really weird year, and I've sat through these multi-day conferences. SEFWA was only 3. WAFWA, the Western, is coming up in January, and that's like 5 days to sit in front of a computer screen is torture. But we did come away from CFWA this year with two big awards. So I'm gonna start with the first one, and that is a special recognition award for the Oklahoma Fishing Trail. So that's recognition of both tourism and recreation and Department of Wildlife, Kelly or whoever is going to represent that. But just to give you a couple of fun facts on the fishing trail, we've talked about it a lot. And of course, Lieutenant Governor Pinnell deserves a lot of credit for helping us really get that kicked off and running, and really even just to have the idea to begin with. But in the first 6 months after launching the Oklahoma Fishing Trail, we saw a 23% increase in non-resident fishing license sales. Again, a lot of this marketing went out of state, especially to our what we like to call Baja, Oklahoma, our neighbors to the south. In Texas, 30 fishing trail billboards posted around the state, about 19,000 plus orders for the free brochure through travelok.com, 122,000 page views on the fishing trail section of travelok.com. They had $39 million in projected lodging revenue that was generated by the fishing trail marketing efforts through the digital advertising from July 1, 2019 through March 31st. And then, of course, that led to, that results in 189 to 1 ROI, return on investment, in just from the sort of the travel side of things, really. And of course, again, we got to see a big surge in that as well. So great partnership between us and tourism and recreation to really show off the state's great fishing resources. Thanks to Barry and the fisheries crew for their recommendations on the, what do we have, like 38, I believe, looking for that number, lakes on the trail. Yes, Kelly knows right off, of course. So congratulations to tourism and Kelly and the Department of Wildlife for their special recognition for the Oklahoma Fishing Trail. So thank you, sir. How are we gonna see y'all? You get on that real quick. No sneezing, no coughing. Want to say anything?
I do want to thank the Department of Wildlife for the protection of the fisheries and all that kind of stuff, which actually gives us something great to promote outside of the state for tourism. It's been a very fun project. We're actually working, starting this next year, actually increasing the size of the trail book. So you'll be seeing that actually grow. It's been a trifold is the thing that we did this last year just to kind of get it out. We're looking at probably doing 20 pages, something like that, for the next guide. So that'll probably be, we have it out for end of 2021. So look forward to that. But again, thank you for all you guys do to protect that, those resources that we're able to promote outside of the state. So thank you.
Okay, yeah, very good, successful project for sure, well worth the effort. And then last but certainly not least is a special recognition award for our Outdoors Are Always Open campaign. So when COVID hit, March, we saw a giant downturn in outdoor participation because everybody was kind of stuck in their house trying to figure out what they could and couldn't do, what was safe for them and their families. And what did Department of Wildlife do? What did Kelly and her crew do? They got to work with Department of Health and State Department of Mental Health and Substance Abuse, and developed a campaign to encourage people that our outdoors are always open and it's the best place to go socially distance in a very natural setting. And so out of that arose the Outdoors Are Always Open campaign. And so you've probably seen some of the some of the many items that came out of that. But we definitely have seen since the launch of that campaign, Kelly, and then as I mentioned earlier, Michael Bergen as well, on her staff. It's hard to spot people when they have masks on. Oh, he's standing right there. Hey, Michael. Been very instrumental in getting the word out through especially social media, influencer videos, involving Testimony and a number of other things that they have put together to encourage people to go outdoors. And so we did that in spring, and on the heels of that, we saw double the license revenue in May that we had in May of last year. And then we saw a revamp of the Outdoors Are Always Open campaign this fall, the hunting edition, we called it. And so we're already seeing some, big increases, probably a record-breaking year in deer harvest. We're certainly seeing big license sales. Muzzleloader license sales were up 70%, I think, or something crazy like that. So just great participation, all a result of Kelly and Michael and their great work on the Outdoors Are Always Open campaign, worthy of CFWA recognition. So good job, y'all. Is that good? You need another one? Okay.
So the successes we saw in the spring have really paved the way to our fall edition, like he mentioned, and we're going strong on that. I'm excited to provide final report on that in February. And it's also sort of showing us what is ahead of us. We are talking about next year, what can we do to sort of build up on these successes, and we look forward to a Operation Retention coming soon. So thank you.
Yeah, one of the things we're talking about nationally, but also here at home, is the fact that this has been, when we talk about R3, recruitment, retention, and reactivation, and all of our efforts to focus on that, both here and at the national level, COVID presented a incredible recruitment opportunity for everybody. And now we're all focused on how do we retain. You got millions of first-time gun buyers, partly fed by COVID and partly fed by the election. But a lot of that is funneling into hunting as well, right? So, and fishing. So now the big challenge for us is how to retain and keep them going, keep them at it, keep them in the outdoors. So big challenges ahead. Kelly will knock it out of the park, and her crew. Michael, good job.
Thank you, JD. Next item on the agenda is update on quail and pheasant seasons. Bill Dinkins and Dale Judkins.
Yeah, since Nathan couldn't help but bring it up, I was fortunate enough to get a doe, and I was bringing it back for a needy family yesterday, and I saw him up on the bridge. It's a well-oiled machine, I can tell you that, because by the time I got to the on-ramp, the warden truck was rolling. I mean, he got right behind me and turned on the red and blues, but I appreciate that kind of stuff a lot. I remember my dad and I was telling Nathan this morning, back in the 70s, maybe early 80s, they used to do roadblocks back then and count your quail, because quail, deer, everything overlap, and they'd actually stop everybody. And I can remember those checkpoints back in the day, but kudos to Nathan and law enforcement for being out there and representing. Did a good job. I let them, it was Emily Long and Zachary Polk. Of course, they come up both sides of the pickup. So I waited until they got right there before I rolled my windows down. I said, you all are going to have to do better than this. I had my carcass tag and waved it at them, but.
And then they sent me a selfie
It was all
Yesterday.
good. Oh, yeah. Yeah, Emily had to take a picture, but anyway. It's all good. So this morning, I mean, as y'all remember, in November, we canceled commission meeting. We're gonna have Tel come give us a quail and pheasant forecast. And since we canceled that meeting, I hope everybody got the email. Well, I actually sent you the forecast, but today we just thought we'd have Tel come and visit with us a little bit on how the season's going and some of the numbers, and he's got a short PowerPoint, so turn it over to Tel.
That is some deathly silence. I appreciate the introduction, Bill, and thank you, commissioners, for the time today to be able to come and talk about some birds. See if I can, right one? That might help. Hey. There we go. So it's just kind of a mid-season update to get you all up to date on kind of what our situation is looking like in the field and a little bit of a report before you try to get back out there yourself. So just to touch base a little bit on some of the information I would have covered last month, but every August and October, we cover 83 routes across the state, which is mostly done by our amazing WMA biologists and technician staff. They do an awesome job with it. Each one of these routes are run to observe quail visible along the roadside, which, you know, this year our roadside ditches were 6 feet tall with Johnson grass, lots of other issues that can impact how many birds you see. And then again, every March and August, we do 13 surveys throughout our pheasant range to look at how many pheasant that we see or hear along the route. We hear them in March when they're doing their spring calling, and then we see them in August whenever we're looking for broods. These surveys, they give us an index. They give us an idea of our bird numbers. It's not a true census by any stretch of the imagination. We do have some research going on right now with Iowa State University through the Pheasant Technical Committee to try to improve these surveys to figure out how can we make them a little bit better. So kind of take these numbers with a grain of salt as we're constantly trying to improve them, but they do give us a little bit of an idea. And as I mentioned, several factors can impact the observability or how many birds we are actually seeing along these routes. These are a couple of charts from the pheasant side or the quail side of things. The big thing to note is that even though our statewide numbers were down this year, that's like saying the statewide COVID numbers. It really doesn't give you a good idea unless you're looking at a specific region or specific area. So that's why we break it down into our regional numbers and then our eco-region numbers. And we can see that there were some substantial increases this year in some regions of the state. North Central's looking pretty good, South Central's up, and the Northeast is up. And then the same with the eco-regions. We've got 3 different areas up from 0 last year to pretty decent numbers across the board. So all hope is not lost. Overview for quail, these were our October numbers. We can see that the numbers are down this year. That being said, there are still birds patchy, as JD said earlier. That's kind of been my phrase this year is the birds are out there, they're just patchy. Then we've got our numbers for pheasant. This was our crowing numbers. So this was the numbers in March where we actually saw an uptick in numbers of birds or numbers of birds we were hearing. And then in August, we saw a little bit of a downturn and numbers back lower than they were last year for pheasant. That being said, I've got pictures from this last weekend of 18 birds on a tailgate. So they're definitely out there. They're just patchy and fewer and further between. Now, this is one thing that these numbers come from our game harvest survey that JD was talking about earlier. And we talked about hunter decline. And this chart in the upper left, that's your quail hunters and your quail harvest. So since 1986, when we were harvesting about 3 million birds and had 112,000 hunters, we've seen quite a decrease. And so it's efforts like these R3 components where we're really trying to attract relevant. I know we agency have done it really well as far as continuing to push to make quail kind of a front piece item because they are important to our states and our sportsmen. But these graphs really kind of drive it home and show that our harvest really trends with our hunter numbers. Now to some actual reports from the field. I was fortunate enough to take part with Quail Forever, Pheasants Forever today, opening day, out at Beaver River WMA for our 2nd annual Hunters Hangout. We were able to do a partners hunt where we're able to get out and meet with some sportsmen in the field, see what the conditions are like, and then we all kind of meet back up later that evening to talk about it. What did we see? How did the dogs work? Did we have fun? It's a really good opportunity for hunters to meet with not only me, but PFQF staff throughout the state. We were also fortunate this year to have biologists from the state of Texas come. Last year when we went, we had a lot of Texas hunters, so we thought, hey, why not bring some of these folks up and they can talk with Oklahoma folks as well as folks back in their state. We did have 2 birds brought into that evening hangout. Not a lot of data that you can glean from 2 birds, but both of them were males. Both of them were juveniles. One was born or hatched around July 24th, and one was hatched around September 5th. Now, these numbers really are kind of abstract, and you can go a lot of ways with it. But one thing of kind of note is what happened between those 2 dates, and that was some of the most severe drought in northwestern Oklahoma. So it's a little bit of a promising sign. We'll know more as more wings come in through our wing boxes, but we've got chicks surviving that were born earlier in the year and another hatch later in the year from these 2 birds. So hopefully we'll have some more good data come out of our wing boxes. On top of that, we've interviewed some regional biologists and technicians around, specifically in the Northwest region where most of our hunters go. Hunter numbers were lower than average. It's, I don't believe, a big surprise to anybody. We had several different reasons that could be. Opening morning ended at 11. It was super dry and windy, unseasonably warm, so we had issues with rattlesnakes and that type of stuff coming out in the afternoon. But it could have been just the survey numbers showing that the numbers were down that kept hunters at home. Opening weekend on Beaver River, we had 101 quail hunters, just about. That's an estimate from Weston's car counts up there. They moved on average about 2 coveys per hunting party. The party that I was with, we moved a covey and a half, I'll call it. One of them wouldn't come out of the brush. And then on Cooper, it was about the same numbers, 104 quail hunters moving about 1 covey per hunter. So there again, the birds are out there. They're just going to be a little harder to find.
Need to get a Cocker Spaniel for that.
Yeah, my short hair was not having it. But also, as of December 1st, whenever I turned this slideshow in, hunters that I had talked to, both resident and non-resident, had spent about 3.7 days in the field, harvesting about 5.5 birds per hunter. That was definitely not me. I'm still at a goose egg. And reports of up to 4 or 5 coveys per day on public land, and 1 instance of 10 on private land up in Harper County. That's the best zeroing in that Wade would give me. I can't give you any more details. And on average, the covey size is about 12 to 13 birds. So with that, I'm going to end with some tag phrases that I always try to throw out, and JD said a lot this morning, but work some ground, trust your dog, and make some memories enjoying the Oklahoma outdoors. And to remember, the outdoors are always open. So with that, I will yield any time I have left. If you all have any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Good job, Tel.
Good job.
All right, and I will say my German short hair is officially a bird dog now because he's been hunting. We just haven't got to shoot any birds over him yet, so I do appreciate it.
He's not a year yet, is he?
He is 1 year and a month.
A year and a month. Okay.
Yep. Appreciate y'all.
Thanks, Tel.
Next on the agenda is a presentation on a cooperative effort between Oklahoma Department of Wildlife Conservation and Quail Forever for habitat improvements on the Oklahoma Land Access Program. Bill?
Thanks, sir. So, I was trying to think, I wrote a note down here and I don't know why I wrote it. Oh, I know why. October meeting, we brought the whole private land section to y'all and introduced everybody. Y'all met Mr. Jeff Tibbetts, who's in charge of our Oklahoma Land Access Program. And so today, Jeff and Laura, I think, are going to tag team a presentation on, where's Jeff? Oh, way back there. There you are. Make sure he didn't leave the room.
Okay.
Oh, here we go.
Thank you very much. My name is Jeff Tibbetts. I'm the biologist for the Oklahoma Land Access Program. And a very quick overview of the OLAP is that it's a program that leases private land for public access for hunting, fishing, and wildlife viewing. When I submitted this slide last week, we are at 85,000 acres. As of tomorrow, it's going to be about 90,000 acres. I'm headed to Beaver County right after this to get some more pheasant opportunity. So a lot of this land is in northwest Oklahoma, and there's a lot of potential for improving habitat for quail and pheasant opportunities and habitat. But the OLAP grant is limited to just providing access. There is no funding for habitat improvement. And that's where PFQF as a conservation partner has stepped in and created separate agreements between the landowners and PFQF for habitat incentives. These habitat improvements include shrub establishment for plum and sumac moths, prescribed burning especially for cedar removal in northwest Oklahoma, seed mix for agricultural corners, and grazing deferment. And that's not all of the incentives. There's quite a few more on the brochure. This partnership provides additional benefits to landowners without impacting farm and ranch production. So we can kind of have our cake and eat it too. The landowner can still make money on their property, but there's also habitat opportunities for wildlife and for the public to pursue that wildlife. And I'll turn it over to Laura.
Thank you. So I want to say thank you. First off, we do appreciate our partnership with ODWC. We are always looking for shared opportunities to meet the same goals, provide better opportunities, whether it is for fishing or hunting, and better habitat for our wildlife. So shared experiences and improved habitat for our wildlife. So, and one of the ways that we have decided that we actually brainstormed this as a team. This is my team. It's kind of fun to be able to say we have a team now when 5 years ago this didn't exist. So it's really a lot of fun to see how far this has come along. Our chapters have put in towards contribution, as well as you guys actually helped us with that first position that we had with Haley, who was a wildlife biologist that was under our auspices. And so with this program, we have now to date, they have given 1,892 presentations. I mean, just in outreach and education alone. Okay, this is just 4 years, and one of those years was only one person. So we've added on. So all 4 of our team whole now has only just been 2 years old. Okay. So they have also affected 126,663 acres through their certified technical assistance programs. And they have also had 1,319 landowner contacts. I mean, that's pretty incredible. I love they're rock stars. They really are. They do an outstanding job. And they are the ones that we all collaborated and said, how can we do something better for Oklahoma hunters, for wildlife? How can we make a difference in the long run? 97% of it's privately owned. How are we going to affect that? Well, this is one of those ways that we can do that. Why not help habitat at the same time that we help you guys expand OLAP? What's our #1 complaint in my circle? Lack of access. More opportunity to be able to hunt and fish and those opportunities. So lack of access, how do we help incentivize that? Well, can we have a landowner who is enrolled and say, hey, we can help you with your habitat needs. We'll do some cost share programs. And that's exactly how we came up with this idea and together as a team. So we worked a long time on putting I actually gave, Rhonda, I think, passed out the actual program, what it covers, and the agreement to everybody, so you can actually look at it. And we spent a lot of time, literally a lot of time, putting this together, vetting it out, changing it up, and really trying to make it where it would be super flexible, but at the same time easy for the landowner.
who hates, I don't know about you, but I really hate trying to go line by line, figuring out what's covered, what's not covered and all that. It's really pretty straightforward. So, that way, down the line, hopefully we get more expanded access with landowners hearing about OLAP opportunities and cost share. And at the same time, we're providing hopefully long-term better habitat and hunting and fishing opportunities. So that is in essence what the program is about. Let's go ahead and go to the next page. So this is the flyer that we've put together for Jeff to be able to disperse, and anybody in your department, you can share this with anybody you want. It is based on a grant, first come, first served program. So we have $10,000 that our chapters have already put in to this program. They have, in their fundraising, they have, dedicated $10,000 total between the donations. And we've also put in for some grant requests. So we are looking for future partners as well to make sure that we can keep funding this forward. This will be a campaign that will be ongoing. It won't be a one-time campaign because we want this to continue for forever, really, as long as we can possibly sustain it. So as long as we can offer those opportunities and have the funding available, then that way we can help incentivize and help you guys out too. So that in essence, it does cover other things, native plantings, even standing grain for wildlife and those kinds, for whether you need shrub establishment or take out some, depending upon what each biologist in their area, when something like this comes up, will be able to work with the landowner. They develop the plan. You guys don't have to do it. You're not doing any of the work on this. But they actually write up the management plan and decide, okay, what is best for that piece of property and for your production goals and what do you want? And how can we, and which wildlife are you even talking about? Because obviously not everything's going to have quail, not everything's going to have deer and vice versa, or turkey or whatever. So it is dependent upon where it is and what's wanted. So moving forward, I think on the next slide, trying to remember what we have here.
Oh, just ask Amanda how to
There
work
we go.
that.
So, and this is actually a great example that I'm going to he has more actually hands-on in regards to the Corners program, but I know that I think Wade was wanting to have some of that. Where are you, Wade? Okay, this will actually include Corners for Wildlife in the sense of being able to help, especially there in Northwest Oklahoma. That'll be a great way to do that. We do have seed for Oklahoma that is mixed for depending upon the area. So it can be a special mix, or we have an online store now that actually has all those sections of Oklahoma seed specified for each region of the state. So that also provides different opportunities for the landowner to be able to take advantage of some of that too, that expertise. What's that?
What site is that online?
Well, it's actually on our home website for Quail Forever and on our state website. It's on the front page of our website right now, so you can actually click on the right link. So, anyway, I'm going to turn it back over to you, and then we'll wrap that up. So.
Yeah, I think you all have some information at your seat too.
So this program is very successful in other states, especially Colorado and Kansas, and Northwest Oklahoma definitely, we emulated those two states with the OLAP. So it makes sense to try to implement this program, and we've got a really, really good first property to do it on. In essence, the PFQF biologist puts the seed mix in, and the state, i.e. OLAP, pays a higher rate for that, for maintaining that habitat over time. So the property we're implementing this on is in
The first one.
The first one is in Cimarron County, and it's an especially really good property because it's adjacent to the Cimarron River Valley. So there's habitat connectivity between different habitat types and a very large patch of habitat in the Cimarron River Valley. So we have 16 corners to begin this program on. And on a quarter section, that essentially amounts to 20% of the habitat. Each corner is 8 acres. And these are on corn and milo fields, so there will be spilled grain available after harvest for these birds. So we're very, very optimistic about the program, the habitat value, and the hunting value with these corners. So I would like to express gratitude to PFQF as our conservation partner for improving habitat for the wildlife and the opportunities for hunters on these properties. The landowners are very eager to improve this habitat, but we haven't had a mechanism within the OLAP to do that. So this partnership fills a much needed niche in the public, because we can actually do something to improve that habitat from pretty good to really good. And just thank you very much for everything y'all are doing.
And likewise, we appreciate the opportunity to be able to do something as well. So all in all, I think yeah, I'm excited to see what else. We've got some areas in K County that have OLAP enrolled landowners, and we have put in for a grant that I'm not sure how much is coming back for, but I think we'll get hopefully something out of that. Seems very positive anyway. So it won't be just Northwest Oklahoma. It really will truly be a statewide thing. And as soon as we put more biologists in the southern part of the state, we'll have a lot more focus down there too. So thank you so much. Yes.
What's the term of?
That's a very good question. So in regards to the term, it's really based on the length of the contract with OLAP. We can't force a landowner. We're hoping that they still continue those practices, but we can only encourage them for as long as possible, especially like shrub establishment when it takes maybe 5 years instead of 3 years. Okay. So, and then actually it's not the acreage that's the limit, it's the amount of dollars. So there is a cap on each area in that chart that I gave you, and we will be posting this online as well. But it's based on really what the work is and what the cost share portion of that is.
And I'll add that on the landowner and departments perspectives, it's not a short-term agreement when people enroll in the OLAP, because they're investing in parking and they're investing in that side of it, and we're investing in signs and maps. So we've never had a property drop out just because a contract expired. So it's a pretty indefinite enrollment.
Which is what we want. Question?
Yes, Laura, the question I had would be, you're basically, the wildlife department's basically a leaseholder on these properties. And as a leaseholder, you go back out to those properties annually to inspect to see that the landowner is doing what the agreement says that.
In fact, not only, they have to do it a couple of times a year, not just.
Could you speak to the microphone?
Oh, I'm sorry. They also have, not only do they help set it all up and make sure that it's enforced, they don't even get paid until it's all completed anyway. And then once it's completed, they have minimally twice a year, they need to get out there and look at the property and take a look at it. And because they want to work with that landowner on an ongoing basis. So even if they have, for some reason, decide to leave OLAP, we hope they don't, but if they do, then we still want a relationship with that landowner to continue doing better habitat work overall, whatever properties he has. And it might not even be OLAP enrolled. It could actually open up the opportunity to do other private land, which of course is really one of the hardest things we can do. So one of the areas that's for us to touch. So does that make sense?
Yeah, because I saw this last weekend is a OLAP of 640 acres down in Harmon County, which is where my ranch is.
Mm-hmm.
And that property was as slick as this tabletop, and it had, the OLAP signs on it. It was nice probably for deer hunting, but as far as
Right.
quail.
Well, and I do remind people that OLAP is not for one specific sport. I mean, it is truly to have opportunities across the board. So it could be dove, it could be deer, it could be fishing, it could be actually just wildlife viewing in some of those areas. So I totally tell my folks, why isn't there better quail hunting on this property? It's not always designed specifically for the quail hunter or pheasant hunter. We really truly need to have more opportunities for turkey and deer as well, because deer hunters have a hard time finding access as well.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Any other questions anybody has? Thank you for that presentation. Next item on the agenda is September 30th, October 31st, financial statements, presented by Amanda Stewart.
Good morning. Which way am I pointing?
You didn't
I'm
click the
really good
tab.
at this part, so. Right, after this. All right, so this is our financial statement overview for October 31st, 2020. Our liabilities and fund balance is $446,345,479, compared with last year's $417,952,056.
Amanda, could you pull your microphone down to your mouth, please?
Yep.
Thank you.
This is an overview of our trust funds balances. For the expendable trust, we have $19,758,403. In our non-expendable trust, we have $94,013,028. Our pension trust has $122,537,587. Our DC trust has $4,122,201, for a total of $250,431,219, compared to last year of $231,095,140. I'll remind you here, we did see a huge decline in the spring, and we've had losses of $2.5 million in September, $2 million in October in our expendable trust fund balance. And if you recall, in the spring, we lost like $12 million in 1 month. So we budgeted appropriately for that. Okay, so for our all governmental fund types and expendable trust fund, our total revenue is $17,531,346 for the month. Our total expenditures are $18,793,013 for the month. That is a deficiency of $1,261,667 for the month. But our overall fund balance is $39,324,220, which is an increase of 21.8% over last year. So our operating income for the ending of the month, October 31st, for our non-expendable trust is $1,062,255. Our pension trust, $4,065,605. Our DC trust, $419,392. And for a total of $5,547,252. Our fund balance for the end of the month, $220,672,816. And then our wildlife contributions for the month was $55. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Questions?
Anybody have any questions, concerns? Okay, moving on to,
Need a motion to.
we need a motion now for that.
Yep.
Motion. Second, discussion? Being none, roll call.
Commissioner Brewster. Commissioner Hughes.
Aye.
Commissioner Gaddis. Aye. Commissioner Zelfs. Commissioner Dillingham. Commissioner Holder. Commissioner Mabry.
Aye. Amend on item 15, agenda items to amend, approve, reject, or take other action on the budget revision for 2021.
So if you recall, at the beginning of the fiscal year, we went into budget season with a $7 million cut from our original budget that we proposed. One of those items that we cut at that time was for our branding initiative.
And in order to get that out on the streets for an RFP, we're asking that the commission approve a budget revision for $100,000 for a branding initiative in the I&E division.
Commissioner, Chairman Mabry, the Finance Committee met this morning, and we recommend that we put that $100,000 back into the budget for this to go out and get bids on a new branding program for the commission.
Okay. Motion to amend that? Second. Discussion? Being none, roll call.
Commissioner Brewster? Commissioner Hughes?
Aye.
Commissioner Gaddis? Aye. Commissioner Zelf? Aye. Commissioner Dillingham? Aye. Commissioner Holder? Commissioner Mabry?
Aye. Agenda item number 16 is the presentation of the fiscal year 2020 actuarial evaluation report for the Wildlife Defined Benefit Plan. Amanda?
Yep. I'd like to introduce David Kent from Retirement Horizons, Inc., and he will go through that with you all.
Good morning. Am I driving this? I'm the one controlling this. No, I got it. I just want to make sure. No, I can't get it to go. Oh, there we go. I'm going the wrong way. Backwards.
Left arrow.
There we go. Okay. All right. So once a year, we do an actuarial evaluation because we have a pension plan, and we have promised to pay the employees in the pension plan these retirement benefits. I want to define a couple of things before I start talking about this. The main one is going to be either the actuarial liability or the accrued liability. That represents the present value of all the benefit payments we expect to pay out of this plan that have been accrued as of the valuation date. In order to get that, we actually project the benefits out for each member in the plan. For retirees, we already know their benefit amount, so it's just a matter of determining how long they're going to live, and if they have elected an option where they're going to pay a portion of it to the spouse, how long the spouse is going to live, and we have assumptions for that. For actives, there are a lot more moving parts because we don't have a definitive benefit, but we do have assumptions as to when that person's going to retire and how much service they're going to have and what their pay is going to look like and all that good stuff. And we project all that out. Then we discount it back with an interest rate. The interest rate we discount it back at is our long-term rate of return on assets. It's 7%. And what that means is if we had assets in the trust equal to our liability and they earned 7% for the remainder of the trust life, we would have enough money to pay all of the benefits we've promised. We compare that to the assets and see what the shortfall is, and we've got a methodology for determining how we're going to make up that shortfall. The other thing I'm going to talk about is normal cost, and that is for our active members. The liability is the present value of the benefits that have been earned as of the valuation date. We do these on July 1 every year. But our active members are earning future service each year. So the normal cost represents the cost of those active people earning one more year of service. And you can think of that as we've at least got to get that contribution in order to tread water. So we take all that information. We get information from the system here. We get the census data, asset data, benefit provisions. We've got our assumptions, and we do our calculations, and we spit out this actuarial evaluation. We spit out the results, and that gives us a measure as to where this plan is on the funding process. So the key takeaways for this valuation. The big one is there was a 2% ad hoc COLA granted, cost of living adjustment. So all of our retirees, their benefit went up 2%. The cost of that was $1.6 million. And if you think about it, because we increased those benefits that we're projecting out into the future, it increased our liability by $1.6 million. A while back, 2008 or so, we used to grant 2% cost of living adjustments on an annual basis. It was very regular. Once the economic downturn happened, we did some changes to the plan and decided we would only grant that, if the committee determined that the fund was in good enough, sound enough actuarial shape, and that that contribution would be funded. So what that did was, whenever you look at our contribution calculation, we are actually going to come up with two contributions this year. One is the $1.6 million to fully fund the COLA. The other is the kind of standard amount that the policy is to fund this plan. Our funded ratio is 88%, and what that means is our assets are 88% of our liability. Once they're 100%, we've got all the money we need to pay our accrued benefits. The COLA actually decreased that. It would have been 89% had we not got that COLA. And the required contribution this year is $2.7 million. I'll get into how that's calculated a little bit later. Last year it was $2.5 million. We actually received $2.3 million last year, so very close to what we needed. So the total contribution is the $2.7 million, kind of our standard contribution, plus the $1.6 million to fully fund the COLA, brings it up to $4.3 million. Like I said, our assets are invested, and we have an assumption for what those assets need to earn in order to do this model. It's 7%. Actually, last year, the market earned 5.1%, at least our invested assets did. We fell short of the 7% goal. That's fine. We know that assets aren't going to earn 7% every year, that market assets, invested assets are very volatile. So what we actually do is, for the valuation purposes, we have something called the actuarial value of assets. It's a smoothed asset. And what we do each year there is say, well, what did our assets do compared to our assumption? Our assumption 7%. Did assets do better or worse than 7%? Like this year, they did worse, so that's a loss. Anything under that 7% return is a loss. Our methodology on the actuarial value of assets is to smooth that loss in over 5 years. We don't recognize it immediately. Same is true for gains. In prior year, we've had gains, and we smooth those in over 5 years. The idea is that that smooth value, first off, it helps us make better decisions because we're not overreacting to where the market happens to be on 7/1. And the idea is over 5 years, hopefully the gains and losses offset each other, so you get a much smoother actuarial value of assets. We use the same assumptions as the prior year. As noted here, generally for these pension plans, we like to do experience studies every 5 years, and what that means is we look back at what actually happened over the past 5 years and what did we assume was going to happen over the past 5 years. And we look into making recommendations about assumption changes because we're doing all these calculations and coming up with contribution calculations. But if the assumptions are really far off, it's really not very helpful what we're doing. So we like to look at that every 5 years. And ideally, we would like to get this done before the next valuation. We would come in, present the study, and then the committee or the commission would vote on either accepting all of our suggestions or a portion or what have you. So what do our participants look like? Well, here's the people who are actually in this pension plan, and this plan is closed to new entrants, which means that new entrants, anyone hired in the past 10 years, don't go into this plan. They go into the 401k plan or the defined contribution plan. So that bottom bar is our active participants, and as you'd expected, since we're not getting any new entrants in, that gets lower every year. What that also means is that normal cost portion gets lower every year because it's a closed plan. The light blue bar is our retirees. Those are the people actually receiving a benefit, and that's getting bigger every year because more people are retiring. And then that top bar, that green bar, those are people who have terminated from the plan. They've accrued a benefit, but they haven't retired yet. So they're just people that are waiting at some point to retire, and we'll start paying them, and they'll move into that light blue bar. This slide shows our historical rates of return. That black bar, that black line is our assumption of 7%. We know that, like I said, assets aren't going to follow that black line, but we'd like them to be close. The dark blue line is the market value. That's what our assets actually did. And as expected, it's very volatile. You've got some very high peaks and low valleys. The light blue line is the actuarial value. And what it does is it just takes the numbers you're seeing on the market value and smooth those gains and losses. Anything above that black line is a gain. We smooth that in over 5 years. Anything below that black line is a loss. We smooth that in over 5 years. And as you can see, especially starting in 2016, it's doing a pretty good job of staying near that black line, and that's what we'd like to see. All right. This is just another representation of what our actuarial value looks like compared to our market value. The dark blue line is the market value. That's what assets actually are in the trust. That light blue is that smooth value. This year, our actuarial value is slightly higher than our market value. What that means is there are $663,000 worth of losses, net losses, that we haven't reflected yet and will be reflected over the next 5 years. The good news is again, if you look at the past 4 years, we're very close to 100%, which means that those gains and losses are doing a good job of offsetting themselves. So here's the slide that shows how we come up with that contribution. How are we going to fill in that gap between our actuarial liability and our assets? Well, our actuarial liability is $135 million, meaning if we had $135 million in the bank today, we would be able to pay all the benefits that have been accrued as of 7/1/2020. The green is the actuarial value, $119 million, which means we've got a slice there, $15.9 million, that we got to close that gap on. 1.6 of that is the COLA. So we're pulling 1.6 out of that and saying we would, based on the policies, we'd expect to get that 1.6 funded now. The remaining 14.3 is going to be amortized over 11 years. And why is it 11 years? It's because this is a closed plan, and the policy on most closed plans is you amortize your unfunded over the expected future working lifetime of your active members. So each year we take all of our active employees and figure out how long do we expect each of them to work and average it. It's 11 years this year. That number is fairly stable because as people drop off, it's not like that goes down one each year. It's been 11 for a couple years. It was 12 for a few years before that. It may go down to 10 years next year. It looks like that's probably where it's going to go, but that allows for fairly stable contributions. So if we amortize our unfunded, that means we need $1.9 million to pay off that unfunded, at least that portion, based on our funding policy. An additional $1.4 million would go to cover our normal costs, the cost of all of our actives earning one more year of service. You add that up, that's $3.3 million. Well, our active employees are making contributions into this plan. They put in 5% of pay. We expect that to be around $600,000 next year, which means that leaves the rest to the department, $2.7 million. So to take the $2.7 million, which is our standard contribution, add the $1.6 million to immediately fund the COLA, the total contributions ends up being $4.3 million. This shows, this is a historical slide. It shows, hey, what have we needed each year? What have we calculated that we need each year versus what have we received? And as you can see, the commission has done a very good job of giving us close to, if not more than what we need every year. That 2017 looks like a weird year. It's kind of the opposite of what happened this year. In 2017, we did our valuation. After we did our evaluation, the commission looked into granting a COLA. They went ahead and granted a COLA and funded it. So that's why you see that extra contribution is there to automatically fund a COLA that was not built into that $3 million contribution. This year, you can see the $4.3 million that includes the additional 1.6. So if you look back, you can see that the costs have generally decreased each year. But that's kind of what you would expect out of a closed plan. We're getting lower normal costs each year, and then we're kind of at the mercy of what assets do as far as what we do on our unfunded. This is a historical representation of our funded ratio. That's the comparison of our assets to our liability. Once that's 100%, then you would expect to have enough assets to cover all of your accrued benefits. As you can see, it's been a pretty steady increase. There's been a couple of dips, but the overall trend is an increase each year, and that's based on the funding policy and receiving the contribution based on our funding policy. We've done a projection, a 2-year projection into the future. We would expect to be at 91% for the next 2 years. That's assuming we get the contributions, the required contributions, and all of our assumptions being met. The reason it's kind of level there is because we are phasing in those losses I mentioned earlier in assets, 633. So even if our assets earned 7% exactly over the next few years, because we're phasing in losses, the actuarial value is actually going to be a little bit less than 7%. And that is, I do want to mention one more thing, and this is not part of the pension valuation, but we also do a medical OPEB valuation. There's a $250 stipend that goes to pay the medical premiums. We do an accounting valuation for that every year. There's no assets associated with that. But I do want to mention this, I mentioned it last year. When that was first put in, the assumption was, and I don't think anybody thought too much about it, was that that was going to be payable for everyone. Last year, it was determined, and I think this is one of the last things Melinda did before she left, was determine that benefit is really only payable to people in the pension plan. So last year, we revised our valuation to reflect only people in the pension plan are receiving that. We did the same this year. I just bring it up to say, we're going to keep that, we're going to keep doing that until a decision is made not to bring them in, or that you could bring them in. I just don't want to get 20 years down the road, and once the first person becomes eligible, a decision being made to say, oh, you know what, we do want to let them in. So I do want to just bring this up every year, that it's good to put a note that you thought about it this year, and you decided either they are going to be allowed in or they're not. But it's good to have some note in a file somewhere that said the commission thought about it, and we're going to continue to either leave them out or put them in. And that is the end of my presentation. Well, anyone that's close to 88% is great. In Oklahoma, you know, the judges are 100%, they're 100% in every state. The police are really well funded too, and the police and fire and the state law enforcement, they get a kind of random portion of the state premium insurance tax, and the police happen to get a bigger portion. So they're really well funded, but compared to teachers and fire and state law enforcement, and then the regular citizens fund or the regular fund, this is really well, and it's the even better thing about how well funded this is, you know, it's 88%, you know, around 90%, is that historical chart that shows we've got a funding policy. Here's what we've calculated we needed, and if you look at that chart, we've gotten close to it, more than it. That's really the important thing, is we're getting the contributions we need in order to fund this plan over what the commission's policy is. You bet. All right.
No action. Yeah, no action necessary. Thanks. No action needed on that item.
Presentation.
Yeah.
Amanda, thank you for that. You have anything else?
I'm the next one too.
Okay.
I'd like to
Financial audit.
introduce,
Go ahead.
Dan Bledsoe from Finley and Cook. He will be giving, a report on our audit for this year.
Good morning. We met with the Finance Committee this morning, kind of gave a more detailed presentation on the overall audit results. So I kind of try to keep this a little brief, but kind of give a good overview. This was the audit for the year ended June 30, 2020 for the commission. So basically incorporates your general fund, permanent fund, as well as we audit the assets of the defined benefit and defined contribution plan. And we're also required to do a compliance audit on your major federal programs, which for this year was the restoration cluster of programs. So with that, we issued an unmodified or clean opinion on the financial statements. So they were presented in accordance with GAAP. We did not have any findings in relation to our compliance testing on the major federal program. Also, as part of our audit procedures, we're required to get an understanding of your internal control system, basically to kind of plan out our audit procedures. And in doing that, if there's any material weaknesses or significant deficiencies in the internal control structure, we're required to communicate that. Did not have any this year, so even with any slight modifications due to COVID and anything with that, still felt there was proper segregation of duties and did not see any issues, based on our sample testing that the controls were followed on that part of it. So also, in doing our sample test work, did not have any fraud issues identified as part of that, as well as no illegal acts or violations of laws or regulations. So basically overall, based on our test work, had a clean audit opinion and no findings or recommendations. So with that, I'll kind of open it up and see if anybody has any questions specific to the audit process.
No questions?
Yeah, I'll just say I appreciate them. This was Amanda's first year doing, kind of rolling in there with Melinda retiring. We appreciate her help as well as Lindsay and, you know, all the compliance staff as well. As we definitely asked for quite a bit of information in doing the audit, and even with the COVID challenges and everything, this year we were able to get everything and still get everything completed on time, so.
Squeaky clean, just like we like them.
Anybody else have any questions? Thank you, Dan, for that presentation. Appreciate that. Next item on the
I think
agenda.
Amanda's got one more thing, if you don't mind,
Okay.
sir.
Yeah, go
Thank you. She was gonna give us, I was talking about license sale increases. She pulled some data for us real quick, just to give you a quick rundown.
Sorry. Okay, so overall sales, we're up 9% for November and up 23% year-to-date. For resident deer gun, we're up 13% versus November of last year. Resident youth deer gun, we're up 5% over last November. Non-resident deer gun, up 12%. Lifetime sales, we're up 29% versus November of last year, and up
Miss President.
37% year-to-date.
Good one.
Good news.
And if Mike is listening, thank you, Mike, for that information.
Speaking of lifetimes, if you hadn't noticed, you know, we do, we sell hard cards every year for $5 with, artwork that I&E staff picks out every year, is sort of a collectible. And, so in addition to some artwork this year, they're doing a card that you can buy right now that's a retro lifetime license look. So many of you may have it in your wallet right now, but sort of the old time, you know, blue and orange lifetime license is one of the hard cards that we're starting to sell now. We're going to see how that sells. But if your old lifetime, your vintage lifetime license is falling apart, now's the time to get a replica version of that in hard card form. You getting ready to pull one out and show it? Yeah, that's even more retro than the one we're running right now. Yeah. There you go. Uh-huh. I know. I got that too, because it looks like all my family photos too, catching catfish out in the Washita River. Yeah.
Both online, app and having license record helpful. And there's a your wallet in a truck several miles away. Very helpful.
Just saying for a friend. Yeah.
A lot of gear to keep up with, isn't it?
Yeah, thank you. I agree. It's made it much easier.
Thank you, JD. For any of you guys that may be interested in buying those lifetime licenses for your children or grandchildren, this is a good time. I've got the ladies upstairs processing two of mine for my two grandsons. One's a year and a half old and one's almost 2, so they'll be set for the rest of their life anyway. Okay, item number 18 is on the commission meetings for 2021. Those dates are January 4th, February 1st, March 1st, April 5th, May 3rd, June 7th, July 5th, August 2nd, September 7th, October 4th, November 1st, and December 6th. So I looked those dates up.
I think those are all first Mondays, right? Except for the
Yeah.
September one, which is day after Labor Day.
Which one's that? Okay. January 4th.
Well, he's asking us to look at the 11th. I think we could do that.
January 4th. Would you like to change that to another day, or?
He's asking to change it to January 11th, the following Monday,
Okay.
which I think works for us. I don't see anything unless any of the chiefs. All good?
Anybody else, you might look at your calendars real quick and see if they're good. So we have a recommendation, for the January meeting to be changed from January 4th to January 11th. Discussions on that?
I'll second it.
Motion and second,
Zelps moved and he seconded.
roll call.
Commissioner Brewster? Commissioner Hughes?
Aye.
Commissioner Gaddis?
Aye.
Commissioner Zelf? Commissioner Dillingham? Commissioner Holder? Commissioner Mabry?
Aye. Agenda item number 19, discussion of any matter not known about or which could have been reasonably foreseen 24 hours prior to the scheduled meeting. Oh,
Yep.
yeah.
Thank you, thank you.
Good.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to also make a couple announcements. One, reminding the commission that if you haven't already made your annual contribution to the foundation, I would challenge you all to do that. And Rick Runnan is here, and I'm sure he would gladly accept those after the meeting. And for spread the word to employees that upstairs in the break room are Christmas goodies on behalf of the commission, thanking you for another year of greatness. We really do appreciate your loyalty and your dedication. So,
Yeah, thank you for that. Thanks, commissioners, for the goodies. I'm sure as people, we talked about alternative plans this year to having a luncheon like
yeah.
you've done in the past, because people kind of float in and out of the office right now with COVID. So those that are watching, or spread the word, there are goodies in the snack room. Come and go, grab as you can. Sure there'll be a big rush on it right after this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lee, for mentioning that.
Sure.
Announce the next regular commission meeting will be on January 11th, 2021 at 9 a.m. Commission offices here. Thank you for your attendance today. We'll see you in January.